First of all, a big shout out to my friend Stan Zinkoski. Thank you for organizing the bash this year and every year. Stan is an amazing guy who organizes a special event at his house once a year where you can meet all of your favorite YouTube machinists. So check out his YouTube channel called ShadeOnHKW. I will put the link in the description. I have something very special and exciting for you guys today. A stepper ClearPath Servo conversion kit for the Tormach 1100 Series 3 mills finally exists. It's not made by Tormach, so it's appropriately called PathPirate, and it is available for you to buy right now. For some of you, the price point may be the biggest deal breaker, so before carrying on with the technical details, I will say that the entire upgrade with all of the components soup to nuts will cost you in the neighborhood of $2,100 to $2,600 US. This is as things stand right now in September 2023. Most of that cost is in the ClearPath Servo components. PathPirate board itself is only about $250 US, which is a really modest price considering all of the work that went into it. The software that comes with it is completely free. Full disclosure, I am not a Tormach employee, and this video is not in any way sponsored nor endorsed by Tormach. I'm also not the author of this kit. I'm simply trying to help spread the word and raise interest to help my friend Greg Carl, who is the actual mastermind behind this solution. If you would like to buy it, message Greg Carl in the Tormach Operators Facebook channel or drop him an email at pathpirateseries3@gmail.com. If you own a Rapid Turn, you may not be aware that it uses its own separate configuration of PathPilot. Greg is finishing making it compatible with this solution. He's going to work on supporting the 770 Series 3 after that, and if you guys show enough interest, maybe even the PCNC 440 mil. I am sincerely hoping that Dan Rogge, Nolan Sering, and the rest of the amazing engineering team at Tormach will recognize that this solution works really well. If you guys are watching right now, please get in touch with Greg and find a way to offer it officially through Tormach, just like you did with the ATC, Loomis's probing routine, Saunders's tool plates, and other cool projects started by Tormach fans. First, a bit of history. Back in May 2019, Tormach announced that they are working on the 1100 Series 3 servo conversion kit. Unfortunately, I was not lucky to become a beta tester for it, so like many of you, I just had to keep waiting for it to be officially released. It was supposed to come out sometimes in early 2020. But then COVID happened, Tormach folks have been forced to work mostly from home. Their business priorities had to be reshuffled. By the end of April 2020, they announced that the servo upgrade package for the M series mills is released, making a lot of folks happy. But the same kit for the Series 3 was delayed. Finally, by mid-November 2020, I was told that the engineering priorities list has been refocused on newer product improvements, and there is no planned date for the Series 3 servo conversion kit. It was clear that it was up to us, the enthusiasts, to continue exploring that path and make it happen. And finally, we're here. Let's talk about pros and cons. On the positive side, you will triple your feed rates. You will increase your X and Y axis maximum feed rate from 110 IPM to 300 IPM, and the Z axis from 90 IPM to 230 IPM. In metric, that's from 2800 millimeters per minute to 7600 mmPM in the X and Y axis, and from 2200 mmPM to 5800 mmPM in the Z axis. If you do a lot of HSM, such as coil wheel slotting, adaptive clearing, other radial chip thinning, where mill takes smaller width of cut at the higher depth of cut, so the machine makes a lot more moves, you will definitely see a significant reduction in machining times. You will also be able to completely get rid of the limit switches, because after this upgrade, the machine will use ClearPath's hard stop code. The resolution of motion and the ball screw positional accuracy will remain the same, but the closed feedback loop allows PathPilot to detect any uncommanded positions. Future PathPilot support is provided by author of this kit, Greg Carl. But being open source software, of course, you can inspect and modify the code yourself. There are a couple of minor drawbacks. The enthusiast nature of this conversion will likely void your warranty, but anyone with a Series 3 machine is likely long past their warranty period anyway. And in case of failure, some of the spare parts may become hard to obtain, so I suggest getting them ahead of time. You will be discarding the following components, but before you do, make sure everything is working properly. I left most of these items close to their original positions on my mill, and I didn't fully remove their wiring just in case. So you will remove your 3-stepper motors, their cables and conduits. You will remove the old Z-axis brake. You will get rid of the homing switches, including their cables and enclosures. Tormach confirmed that they are not used at all on the servo-based machines and can be safely discarded. You only see them on the servo-based machines because they're added to all based M and MX units when they're built. And then Tormach adds either stepper or servo motors later in their process. Homing switch bumpers will be gone as well. And if you're curious how the new servos do homing without the switches, watch this video. I'll put the link in the description. You will remove some of the old wiring from the control cabinet. You will keep some of the existing wires that may be reused. And here are the new components that are going to be either replaced or added. The PathPirate card from Greg Carl and its wiring, which is really the heart of this solution. It comes with the detailed installation instructions PDF and bill of materials for all of the required components. So while my video is not an official installation guide, it's made to complement Greg's documentation and help you make some choices. Documentation, which you will want to have immediately accessible during the upgrade process, either on a laptop, tablet, or printed on paper. PathPirate Series 3 ClearPath Conversion PDF, which Greg Carl will email you. Tormach installation guide for the 1100M Plus servo upgrade kit. I will put the link in the description, but keep in mind that you will only be using a portion of this guide. Tormach 1100M Plus servo upgrade installation video. I will put the link in the description as well. It's really optional, but the same here. You will only be using a portion of it. Windows laptop to run the Teknic MSP 2.0 or later software. Link in the description. You may need to fill out a free registration form to download it. PathPilot 294 software download. Later version of PathPilot are also supported. PathPirate software to patch your PathPilot installation so that it can work with the PathPirate card and other new components. Internet access on the PathPilot computer to download the PathPirate software. 3 servo motors and their 3 power cables plus 3 control cables. The new Z-axis brake and its cable. You can either buy the servo upgrade kit that Tormach sells for their 1100M to 1100M Plus conversion, or get the motors directly from Teknic. One major benefit of getting it from Tormach is that you are also getting their recommended X-axis motor cover. Unfortunately, my mill enclosure was modified in a way where I cannot use the Tormach's X-motor box due to its size. If you go with the Tormach's kit, make sure you do not buy the ECM 1.5 update kit for 1100M and 770M mills. If you buy motors from Teknic, here is the list of everything you need. Keep in mind that Teknic makes these motors custom to order, so their usual lead time to ship is about a week. These servo motors will have 2 options, with and without the seal. The price difference is really negligible, so I got the version with the seal for all 3 axes. The ClearPath motors are IP55 rated at the connector if the dielectric grease is used. and they're IP65 rated for the front face if the seal option is chosen. If a seal is present, the Teknic part number ends with the S for seal instead of N. I believe the original Tormach kit has only the X-axis motor with the seal, while the Y and the Z motors do not have them since they're really far away from coolant. You will have to buy the following components directly from Mesa Electronics. Mesa 7i85S 8-channel differential output plus 4-channel encoder interface card, DIN rail adapter kit, DB25 female to IDC26 cable with the standard bracket. If your PathPilot computer is low profile, you will also need to get the low profile bracket. DB25 male to male 6-foot cable, which connects this Mesa 7i85S card to your PathPilot computer. If you decide to keep this card next to the computer like I did, they also have the 18-inch version of this cable instead of 6-foot. Here's the list of other components that you can get from Amazon or your favorite electronics and hardware component suppliers like DigiKey, McMaster-Carr, etc. 5mm by 20mm screws with split washers. You will need 4 of them to connect the Z motor to the Z brake if motors were bought directly from Teknic. If you went with the kit from Tormach, it comes with the Z brake pre-installed onto the Z-axis motor, so you don't need those screws and washers. 4-inch DIN rail, and you will need 2 of them. Self-tapping metal sheet screws to mount the DIN rails. 16-gauge female spade connectors, and get at least a dozen of them. 16-gauge stranded wire, about 20 feet, should cover it. 16-gauge capable wire stripper. 22-gauge capable wire stripper. Cat 5 insulation cutter. Flush cut wire cutter. Dielectric grease. 2.5mm flat screwdriver. Phillips number 1 and number 2 screwdrivers. 2 sets of hex wrenches, both metric and standard just in case. A label maker and label tapes. 12mm flat. 1/4 and 1/2-inch heat shrink. Here are some of the optional tools and materials. A long USB cable to use the jog shuttle while you're looking at the Y motor behind the machine and orienting its coupler. 10-foot or longer USB cable to be able to use the MSP software with the Y motor at a later date. I just zip tied it to the front of my machine. If you want to protect your X-axis motor cables, you will need to buy 2 of the 3/4-inch liquid-tight conduit, 6-foot long, from Home Depot or any hardware store, 3/4-inch capable step drill bit, 1/2-inch capable hand-powered drill or a mag drill. If instead you will route the servo power and control cables directly into the control cabinet, you will need either a 31/64-inch or 1/2-inch twist drill and a 1/2-inch capable hand-powered drill. If you have mild OCD or trades like me and would like to make your wiring neat, you will also need 1/2-inch heat shrink tubing and a heat gun. If you decide to keep your Mesa card next to your computer, like I did, you will need 15 feet of 22-gauge shielded 8-conductor control cable. Shielded Cat 5, 5E, or 6 cable may also work. But please get in touch with Greg on this, because he may have done some experimentation and I haven't. Butt Industries CU475 aluminum econo box that measures 4 3/4 inch by 4 3/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch. Aviation disconnect with 8 pins. Soldering set. Two 832 by 1/4 inch screws. a Molex pin extractor, crimper and ferrules, and some cable glands, also known as grip nuts. If you decide to make your own X motor shield instead of the Tormach one and their tool tray, you can make one from the used kitchen cutting board. Here is the 55mm bolt pattern that makes it tight with the coupler box. I can't stress enough how important it is to have your oiling system in check. Tormach makes the automated oiler, which is mandatory for their servo-based machine. If you have it, set the interval time to 480 minutes, which is 8 hours, and the actuation time to 12 seconds. If you still prefer to keep your manual oiler, make sure you activate it manually every 4 hours of machine use. That is what Tormach prescribes for their servo-based machines in their manual. Make sure that the plunger retracts back from the fully extended position in about 7 seconds. If it takes a lot longer than that, read the service bulletin on how to clean your lubrication system. Link in the description. There are several ways to position some of these new components. For example, Greg recommends putting the Mesa 7i85S card inside the Z column. I have extremely restricted access to the back of my mill. When I say restricted, that is as far as I can get to it without moving my machine. So, I opted to make a custom enclosure for my Mesa 7i85S card and keep it right next to my PathPilot computer. I got the Bud Industries CU475 aluminum Meccano box. Then I milled the openings for the aviation disconnect and the DB25 connector on it. Greg recommends to route the power and control cables from the servo motors through the Z column and into the control cabinet. I opted to route them directly into the control cabinet through the cable glands. I had to drill some 1/2-inch holes on top of my control cabinet. I also routed the Mesa 7i85S card cable the same way. So it's really up to you what you're comfortable with and how you want to route your cables. Whatever is your plan, think through it, write it all down. Make sure that you complete it all from start to finish without realizing that you need to use the mill to machine something in the middle of this process. As the first step, I would recommend working on your PathPilot computer. Download and upgrade PathPilot 2.9.4 if you have an earlier version. And if you have a later version, check with Greg first that this version has been tested. I started with the 2.9.4 and then eventually moved to the 2.9.6 without any issues. If your PathPilot computer looks like this, you have a full-size machine. So you can proceed with removing these 2 screws in the back and sliding the cover to open it. Pull on this tab or remove it to reveal the card mounting brackets and screws. Greg recommends removing the existing Mesa 5i25 card for the next step, but I didn't even have to do it. Carefully remove the W1 jumper from the lower position and move it to the upper position. This will allow the computer to power the new 7i85S card via the DB25 cable. Next, insert the DB25 female connector bracket into the empty space next to the 5i25 card. And plug the IDC26 connector into the 5i25 card. Make sure that the red colored pin number 1 is on the left side and the bump in the connector matches the notch on the other side. I recommend labeling the new connector on the outside so you can tell the 2 DB25 ports apart. Put in the retaining screw, flip up the tab cover, install the cover and 2 screws. Next, you can start up your PathPilot computer without even connecting it to your mill. We're going to download the PathPirate software and make sure you don't have any issues with that process. An internet connection is required for this step. From the main PathPilot screen, press Ctrl-Alt-X on the left side of your keyboard, which will start a blank terminal window. Enter the following command into the window and press Enter. If for some reason you don't have an internet connection on your PathPilot computer, you can do it on another computer where you have Git installed, then simply transfer your repository via USB flash drive. After the Git repository cloning process completes, Run PathPirate by entering the following command into the window and press enter. You should see this PathPirate configurator interface on your screen now. To test it and make sure it can patch your PathPilot, press the Max Velocity to Rapid button. It will replace the Max Velocity button in your PathPilot with the Max Rapid button. Make sure you see this output on your screen and you don't see any errors. If you do, take a screenshot with your phone and get in touch with Greg before proceeding any further. Max Velocity slider and Rapid slider are not the same thing. The Max Velocity slider controls how fast the machine moves universally. Rapid moves or slow moves. This means it can also slow feed moves depending on how low the slider is set. PathPirate can change the maximum velocity slider to an actual rapid slider. After this change, the slider will only affect rapid G0 moves and will not have any impact on the G1, G2, and G3 feed moves. Do not use the Add Servos button just yet. Close the PathPirate configurator by hitting the Exit button in the upper right corner and restart your PathPilot computer. Make sure, after it's restarted, that you can see the Max Velocity button being replaced with the Max Rapid. Reconnect your old DB25 male cable from your mill control cabinet to the 5i25 card and the new DB5 male connector to the newly installed bracket and the Mesa 7i85S card. Now I'll go through the process of removing the stepper motors and installing the ClearPath servos. Make sure that the electrical cabinet is de-energized and that PathPilot PC is turned off before proceeding. Follow the TD10580 installation guide for 1100M Plus Servo Upgrade Kit PDF that you downloaded earlier. Make sure that you only follow sections 1.1 through 4.1.2, focusing on removing the steppers and installing the servos only. If you did not order the Tormach kit, skip steps 9 and 11 in section 3.1.2 and any information about installing the sheet metal splash guard. Do not do anything from section 4.1.3, making electrical connections. Be sure to mark the IDC10 ribbon cables with the axis they correspond to. Wire labels for the stepper connections may be different, so use the descriptions like X, Y, and Z instead. There will be no wire pass-through plugs on the column or electrical cabinet. So here you have several options. For the kit purchased from Tormach, drill an extra hole in the column or enlarge the current hole. You can buy 2 sets of 3/4 waterproof conduits from your local hardware store, then use it to route the power and control wiring through it. Pulling both through the same conduit will be a very snug fit. Carefully route the wiring in a way that is unlikely to get damaged by chips, parts coming loose from the vise, etc. Route the wiring inside the column by cutting a notch in the rear access panel. If you bought the servos from ClearPath, the connectors are too large to fit inside the conduit. This means you can either route them through carefully inside the column by cutting a notch in the rear access panel, or you can cut the ends off of them through the conduit and use the connection points intended for the Tormach kit on the PathPirate board instead of the Molex connectors. Personally, I chose to go another route and de-pin them with the Molex tool, which only takes a minute. Then I simply routed them through the top of the control cabinet cable glands. I had to drill 7 holes for that, as follows: 3 for the motor power cables, 3 for the control cables, and the last one for the Mesa card cable. The Z-brake wires can be combined with the Z-axis servo cable in the same gland. Once that's done, simply plug in the pins back into the Molex connectors and you're done. Before you drill your control cabinet, it's a good idea to use painter's plastic with a tape attached to it or a newspaper to keep the chips from finding their way into sensitive electronics. Remove the 3 stepper drivers from your control cabinet since you won't need them anymore. Using 2 self-tapping sheet metal screws or the existing holes from the motor drivers, mount the DIN rail like this. Then mount the PathPirate board onto the DIN rail. Mount the second DIN rail and the Mesa 7i85S card onto the column back cover if you decide to go that route. Make sure you also make a notch for the DB25 male cable. If you were interrupted during the last few steps, at this point double check that everything is unplugged and de-energized completely before proceeding further. Follow Greg's PathPirate PDF document to make all of the connections inside the control cabinet. There are a total of 14 wires from the PathPirate board, J5, J12, J13, and J14 connectors to the various spots inside the control cabinet. Plug in the Molex connectors for the X, Y, and Z power and control cables into the PathPirate board. If your motors were sourced from Tormach, connect the individual pins number 467 through 480 to the bottom of the PathPirate card. Reconnect the 3 IDC10 ribbon cables that were originally plugged into the drivers into the J9, J10, and J11 connectors on the PathPirate board. I chose to crimp the ferrules on all of the wires, but you don't really have to. Keep in mind that the ClearPath motors are not polarity protected. Incorrect connections will ruin these motors. The Z brake doesn't care about polarity despite being a DC device. So either of its 2 wires can be connected to either the terminals number 3 and number 4 on the PathPirate's J5 connector. There are 8 wires bundled as one cable between the PathPirate card and the Mesa 7i85S card. I found that it's easier to keep track of them if you follow the standard D-sub convention. Of course, it's even better to label them. If you crimp the ferrules, might as well use the shrink tubing labels too. You will have to configure jumpers W1, W2, and W4 as described on Greg's PDF. I opted to put the aviation disconnect on the Mesa card box, but this is also optional. Then follow his instructions on connecting your laptop with the ClearPath MSP software via USB directly to each one of the servo motors. Upload the configuration to each one of those 3 servos using 3 files that Greg provides. After you're done, make sure you protect the USB ports with the rubber caps to protect them from coolant and coolant vapor. Start up the PathPilot computer and run PathPilot configurator again. This time, press the Add Servos button and make sure you see this output. If you see something else instead, errors or warnings, get in touch with Greg before proceeding any further. Make sure you fully power cycle the PathPilot computer so that the upgraded firmware takes effect on the 5i25 card. In the future, when you upgrade to the newer versions of PathPilot, you will have to rerun the PathPirate configurator and repatch again. It only takes one click. Greg has the simple process described in his PDF document. Like I said in the beginning of this video, it would be great if Tormach recognizes this as a working solution and integrates Greg's code into their PathPilot code directly so no patching is necessary. I imagine this version of the mill would be called 1100 S3 Plus. Now verify the installation. Start up the mill and PathPilot as usual, hit reset, go to the settings page and make sure that the limit switches checkbox has been replaced by the hard stop referencing checkbox, and it is checked. Activate your oiler, reference the axis in the usual ZYX order. Does she chooch? Oh yes, she chooches. Check to make sure that you can reach your new G0 speeds. Keep in mind that your jogging rapids are limited to less than the full G0 rapid speeds. I think it's about 200 IPM for the X and Y axes and a bit less for the Z. This is something that Tormach does to prevent jogging crashes at full speed. Enjoy how quiet it runs. Now let's run the test part and take a measurement to make sure everything works. Spot on. You could rerun MSP with your standard XY table load and create your own motor configuration profiles. The initial configuration profiles provided with PathPirate saved to the drives changes many of the parameters that would otherwise not get set. So if you want to do auto-tune, you still need to save PathPirate config to your drives first. The auto-tune is not officially supported yet though. The tricky part is to find an easy solution to unlock the Z-axis brake, but Greg is working on it. If you would like to buy PathPirate or to report bugs and issues, reach out to Greg Carl in the Tormach Operators Facebook channel or email pathpirateseries3@gmail.com. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Enjoy your upgraded machine.